As we saw in the last video, all the coils are good. I thought I'd open up one of the IF cans so you can see what is in there. And I don't recommend doing this unless you absolutely have to, because the wires are very thin and it's very aggravating getting the aluminum can back on the IF can. Usually what you have to do is unsolder the wires from underneath, pull it out, put it back together, and then resolder it back in. But you can see here the primary and secondary coils of the IF. This happens to be the second IF. Here's a picture of the filter circuit for the power supply. And that 2200 ohm resistor that's connected has two more wires on that lug. One of them goes to the cathode of the 35Z5 and the other is the red wire that goes to the audio transformer. And here I've cut away the resistor and a little bit closer look at that, and I'm going to cut the wires off and set them aside right here. You can see on the right side the two wires and the resistor. Those all go together. And you can also see that I've cut another wire from the other 40 microfarad capacitor that goes to the second IF can. Also, you'll notice that I've got a terminal strip there in the center. It's not bolted down yet. What I'm doing is I'm trying to determine where I'm going to put that terminal strip. Basically, will the parts meet? Also, on the left, I cut the 150 ohm resistor. There's a closer look at that terminal strip. I'm still positioning it to see if I want it there and also what would work the best. I'm still positioning parts, and it was about this time that I realized I shouldn't have cut the 150 ohm resistor. That's the green brown one on the left, and later on we'll see that I put it back, soldered it back to common ground. The side that I cut went to common ground. But before I did that, I started wiring up the terminal strip, and you can see that I did bolt it down here. And also, I was thinking, well, I'll hook up the resistor and those other two wires. And then I got to looking at this and I go, wait a minute, there's way too many wires on that one terminal. Should only be 3, the ones that I don't have connected yet. So I'd wired it up wrong here. The wires that I have there, I've got one wire on the left and one wire on the right. Well, they should be together. And I verified that with the wiring diagram, an ohm meter, and most importantly, the pictures that I took. Here's a closer look of that error. Okay, here I have corrected everything. You can see down at the bottom I soldered that 150 ohm resistor back to common ground. I've got the two wires on the left connected to a terminal, and I've got the three connections on the right soldered to the right terminal. Now at that point I decided I'll start changing out the wax capacitors. The electrolytics are cut open. I got plenty of room to work now, so I continued replacing the electrolytics. Oh, and in this shot the new capacitor all the way to the left, that should be a .006. I don't have one, but I looked at the circuit and where it was, and I go, the .0047 will work. Now that's okay in a radio like this. These are fairly simple radios. I would never do that to a radio like a expensive Zenith or a Drake or a Scott, but these are very simple radios. Okay, I continued to change out the capacitors. Now here I added the first electrolytic capacitor. One of the considerations of putting that terminal strip where I did was, of course, I would have access to the positive side, but what about the negative side? Well, we had a handy location right there. That wire that you see that runs up to the volume control, that particular wire was a common ground. So here I added the other electrolytic capacitor, and I continued on replacing the other wax capacitors. And now it's time for a power-up test. I want to power this thing up slowly. I've got the meter across the power supply. I've got the volume control. Okay, it's up all the way. And let's bring this up. Here's .60 volts. I'm watching the current also, and the current is what it's supposed to be. If the current would be, excessive, I would turn this off immediately. Okay, looks like the 35Z5 is warming up slowly. Up to a little over 50 volts, 60 volts. Still don't hear anything yet. And the current is where it should be. So I'm going to bring it up to 80 volts. Current still looks good. Oh, I hear something. All right. Let me bring this all the way up to 120 volts. Current still looks right. Okay. I'll turn this down.
At ease was not being in the military.
Sounds pretty good.
Bro, 'cause I am not in the military.
Wrong way.
Dating back to Martinsville, Texas, Homestead and Daytona, and they're leading today with Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Well, sounds pretty good. Current looks good. And the voltage looks good. Thanks for watching.